Today on Talk to Us, we're doing something a little bit different. We are talking about how to speak like an American. I am an American. My name's Alex Villarreal. I was born here in the state of Ohio, and I have what you would call a Midwestern accent, a pretty standard accent. But when you talk about an American accent, there's not just one, there are many different accents. So we have a different accent in the south of the country. In the Northeast, there's another type of accent. There's a certain cadence that we say that people in California, in the western part of the country, that they talk with. It's interesting when you talk about an American accent. There's no clear definition of what that really means, but we tend to talk about it in terms of how it differs from the British accent, the British form of speaking English. I have Jui with me right now, studying in Russia from Vietnam. And are there any questions that you have today, Jui, about English and maybe about speaking American English?
Yes. Actually, I have a plan to go to US in the next year. So I am curious about how to get an American accent. And I asked some of my friends who already live almost 5 years in US, but they still don't get the accent.
Yes. It's
Yeah,
a difficult
so do you
accent.
think that it is possible to people to get an accent, or they need to go there in US and live since they are a child?
I think it helps if you're around people who are able to speak with the American accent, but you can still surround yourself with the American way of speaking even without being in the United States, for example, through movies, through music. So there are a lot of ways that you can learn the American accent, and I think that the best way is really imitation. So you hear something, you hear the way that someone says something, and you try to repeat it in that same way. For example, we can do a practice run. There are a couple words that they talk about when they talk about the standard American accent. I'm going to pull it up right here, actually. I wrote them down earlier. Um, and these are words that sort of represent how Americans say things versus how maybe people who have a British accent would say things. So, for example, the word bath. Like, I'm going to take a bath, or here is my bathroom, here's the bathtub. The word bath uses this short A sound, and that's very American because in British
Yeah.
English, they would say bath, the bathroom,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
we say bath. So it's this very one tip that I can give you is that I've seen in a lot of tutorials about how to speak American English is to try when you speak to speak with a smile and have your mouth sort of wide open. Yes, like that. And when you say things, I know it feels silly. It feels really silly, especially if you're talking about
Yeah.
something serious. But it helps. And what you do is you smile and you have this wide set mouth, and you hold your tongue up high. And when you talk, you have a more nasal sound because American English tends to be a little bit more nasal. So then you say bath, bath, and that stretched out sound, that sort of short A sound. So if you want to try it,
So do you think that if some people try hard enough, they can get the accent?
absolutely. But I
But
also,
some people argue that if I copy how Americans speaking, how Americans are speaking, I just have a fake accent. It's not clearly a 100% American accent.
well, I
So
think that it's interesting because when you talk about living in the United States, now we have people from all over the world. So to be an
yes,
American doesn't necessarily mean to not have an accent at all. I think there are a lot of people who are Americans here. One of my colleagues, he's originally from Pakistan, but he's now an American citizen, and I consider him an American just like any of us. And he has a strong accent, a Pakistani accent. So I think the goal is to develop your accent to the point where people can understand you. And there are some
yes,
key sounds that are really important. in your language, in the Vietnamese language, that hard R sound that we say is not really part of your language. So
Yes, you're right.
it's hard to say. But
Yes.
that's something that you could practice on. Just that specific sound, that hard R sound. So I think there are certain parts of the accent that you'll naturally have based on the region of the world that you're from that you can work on. But in terms of losing your entire accent, I don't really think that's the goal. I would say for you, what I hear in listening to you, I would say I would suggest two things to focus on. And that would
Yeah.
be your hard R sound. So if you think of words like picture, president, and really getting that picture, exactly, picture with a hard R, that hard R, because in your language the sound is a softer sound, like with more of like a pitcha kind of ending.
Yes.
So if you focus on that hard sound, picture, president, and you just kind of continue practicing that, I think that will help. The other thing I would suggest is, I noticed when you were talking, when you say the word the, like going to the movies, let's say, then you the tendency is to substitute that th, that the sound, with your tongue in between your teeth, the, with a z sound, like a z.
Yes,
Yes.
that's my problem.
Yes.
I can't pronounce the th sound.
Right. It's
Even
a hard
I,
sound.
yeah,
It's a hard sound, but
I type it like the. It's not
yes.
the.
Right, because
Yeah.
and so when you pronounce it like that, it's more of a D sound. So the
Yes.
th sound, really your tongue placement has a big part to do with it. So if you put your tongue in between your teeth, and just practice that initial sound, and you should feel sort of a buzzing feeling on your tongue, like it sort of vibrates a little. The, and if you practice that, and you can try it, yeah.
The.
Yes, that's it. That's it. Today, our topic of conversation is how to speak like an American. Do you have any questions for me about the American accent or about English in general?
Okay, how do I improve my American accent?
Okay, so there are a number of things that you can do to improve your accent. For example, watching our VOA Learning English videos is a good way, especially watching how the mouth moves. That's one of the key elements to the way we speak. One piece of advice that I've seen on a number of American accent teaching websites is to smile while you speak. It sounds silly, but when you're practicing English, if you smile, that gives you more of the American sound of speaking, because the American sound is kind of a wide set, drawn out sound. Another thing to do is to focus on the vowels. So when you think of our vowels, we have the vowels A, E, I, O, U. There's a very specific American way of pronouncing words with those vowels. For example, you take the word, let's see, president, for example. So it's a short E sound, short I sound, president. A word like that, a word like, yes, you can go ahead and say it yourself too.
President Barack Obama.
Yes. So
President of the United States.
Yes, exactly. The President of the United States is another interesting word, because that uses, in contrast to a word like bath, which uses a short A sound, the word states uses a long A sound. So we really enunciate that states, that long sound, states. So we would say President Barack Obama.
Barack Obama.
Barack Obama, perfect, yes. Of the United States.
Of the United States of America.
Yes, that sounds great.
Perfect.
That's very good, yes, perfect.
What is the main point improving accent, American accent? What is the main point? I get.
Yes, I would say focusing on two things. your mouth placement is really important. So watching how other people speak and making sure that your tongue and your lips are in the right formation. So you can do that using our Learning English videos. That's helpful. And sort of trying to imitate the way that Americans speak is one thing, or watching American movies as well. That's one thing. And then the other thing, I think, and so, that in terms of watching the way the mouth moves and imitating. Another suggestion that I've seen is if you smile while you speak. That gives you the sort of American, it feels silly to do that, but it gives you that American, more nasal sound. So I would say smile while you speak, and just repetition, repetition, repetition. Focus on isolated sounds, any sounds that sort of give you trouble, and just keep repeating them. Repeating certain words, cutting the words, say, like if, for example, you're saying the word president, president. Isolating it into the various syllables, and then when you say it all together, it'll be easier. So just repeating and listening to how other people talk, and then just practicing English yourself, just talking.